Every month, Maya opens her credit card statement, sees the minimum payment due, and pays it. Not because she can't afford more, because the number looks reasonable. $63 on an $8,000 balance. $63 feels manageable, responsible even. She's not ignoring the debt, she's paying it. Every single month without fail, she pays what the statement asks, and every single month, the balance barely moves. Some months it doesn't move at all. Some months it goes up. Her coworker James has the same $8,000 balance on the same card at the same interest rate. He pays $300 a month. He doesn't think about it much. He set up the automatic payment 2 years ago and mostly forgot about it. He has never once felt like he was doing anything special. He is not a finance person. He just didn't like having the debt. 5 years from now, Maya will have paid more money to the credit card company than James did. She will still have a balance. James will have been debt-free for over 2 years, and the money he was sending to the card company will have been quietly building in a brokerage account. The gap between them in total net worth at that point will be somewhere around $32,000. Not because James earned more, not because Maya spent recklessly, because of a number on a statement that looks like a reasonable thing to pay and is one of the most quietly destructive financial tools ever designed. Let's talk about what the minimum payment actually is, because most people have a vague sense that it's bad to only pay the minimum, but have never understood the specific mechanism that makes it so devastating. The minimum payment on most credit cards is calculated one of two ways: either a flat dollar amount, typically somewhere between $25 and $35, or a percentage of the outstanding balance, usually somewhere between 1% and 3%, whichever is higher. On Maya's $8,000 balance at 22% APR, the minimum payment works out to about $63. That sounds like it's making a dent. Here is what is actually happening inside that $63. 22% annual interest rate divided by 12 months equals approximately 1.83% monthly interest. On an $8,000 balance, 1.83% is $146.67 in interest that accrues in a single month. Maya is paying $63 toward a balance that generated $146 in interest charges. She is not paying down her debt. She is not even keeping up with the interest. She is falling further behind every single month by $83, and her statement is presenting this to her as the amount due. The minimum payment is not the amount you need to pay. It is the minimum the lender will accept before they consider you delinquent. Those are completely different things, and the industry has spent decades making sure you confuse them. Here is the number that Maya has never seen because it does not appear anywhere on her statement. If she pays only the minimum every month, the card's internal minimum payment calculation adjusts downward as the balance slowly decreases, which means her payment actually drops over time, which means the payoff takes even longer than a fixed payment would. At this rate, paying only the minimum on her $8,000 balance at 22% APR, it will take Maya approximately 31 years to pay off this debt. Not 5 years, not 10 years, 31 years. And over that time, she will pay approximately $15,600 in interest on top of the $8,000 she originally borrowed. Her total cost for $8,000 of credit card debt paid at the minimum is $23,600, nearly 3 times what she borrowed. That number, $23,600, is not on her statement. The statement shows $63. It also shows, buried in a disclosure box that federal law now requires but that nobody reads, a line that says something like, "If you make only minimum payments, you will pay off this balance in 31 years and pay approximately $15,600 in interest." The law requires them to put it there. The design of the statement ensures you never focus on it. The minimum payment is in large font, bold, prominently placed. The payoff disclosure is in the smallest readable font, in a gray box, below the fold, competing with 6 other pieces of information. The industry knows which number you will look at. They designed it that way. James, paying $300 a month, tells a completely different story. At $300 per month on the same $8,000 balance at 22% APR, James pays off his debt in 31 months, 2 years and 7 months, and his total interest paid over that period is approximately $2,800. Compare that to Maya's $15,600. The difference in interest paid between minimum payments and a fixed $300 payment is $12,800. $12,800 that James gets to keep and Maya gives to the bank. That is not a rounding error. That is a car. That is a down payment. That is years of retirement contributions. And the only thing that generated that gap was a number, 63 versus 300. Now, let's be precise about something, because this is where the math gets even more uncomfortable. Maya is not paying $63 a month and watching her balance stay flat. Her balance is actually growing. Every month she pays $63, she accrues $147 in interest, and the net change to her balance is negative $84, in the wrong direction. After 12 months of minimum payments, Maya's $8,000 balance is not $8,000 anymore. It is closer to $8,950. She has paid $756 over the year, and her balance went up by almost $1,000. This is not a metaphor. This is arithmetic, and it compounds. Year 2 of minimum payments. Her balance is now approaching $9,000. The minimum payment has not gone up proportionally because the minimum is recalculated on the balance, and the balance grows slowly enough that the payment stays relatively flat. She is still paying something in the $60 to $70 range. She is still falling further behind every month. By year 3, she has paid over $2,200 in minimum payments, and her balance has crossed $9,500. She has paid $2,200 to go from $8,000 in debt to $9,500 in debt. She is paid to fall further behind. This is the minimum payment trap in its full form. It is not neutral. It is not treading water. It is a slow backward slide presented as a responsible monthly obligation. Let's take a step back from Maya and James and talk about the architecture of this system, because understanding how it was built tells you something important about why it works so well on so many people. The modern minimum payment structure was not always the way it is now. In the early days of credit cards, minimums were higher. Some issuers required customers to pay off 10% of the balance each month. That is a structure that actually creates payoff timelines measured in single-digit years. Then, gradually, over decades, minimums came down. 2%, 1.5%. Some issuers went to 1%. The lower the minimum, the longer the debt lasts. The longer the debt lasts, the more interest the bank collects. This was not an accident. It was a business decision made by people who understood compound interest better than their customers did. The Credit Card Act of 2009 introduced the disclosure requirement, the law that forces card companies to show you the 31-year payoff timeline in that gray disclosure box. Before 2009, that information did not have to appear anywhere. You could carry a balance for decades and never be given a single piece of paper that explained what you were actually paying. The disclosure is real. The design around it is not neutral. Required information and prominent information are different things. The industry learned to comply with the letter of the law while continuing to make the minimum payment the most visible, most prominent, most natural-feeling number on the page. And it worked. A 2021 report from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that a significant portion of cardholders regularly pay only the minimum or close to it, despite the law's attempt to make the true cost more visible. There is a psychological mechanism at work here that goes beyond just not noticing the disclosure. Behavioral economists call it anchoring. When you see a number prominently displayed as the amount due, your brain anchors to that number as the reference point. Everything else gets evaluated relative to it. Paying $63 feels like meeting your obligation. Paying $300 feels like going above and beyond. The reality is that $300 is what it costs to actually handle the debt in a reasonable time frame, and $63 is the amount that keeps you in debt for 31 years. But $63 is the anchor, and once your brain has anchored there, paying more feels optional, voluntary, generous even. You are not late if you pay $63. You are not doing anything wrong, you are just paying what the statement says you owe. Maya has been paying what the statement says she owes for 4 years. In 4 years of minimum payments, she has paid approximately $3,200 toward her $8,000 balance. Her balance today is somewhere above $9,000. She has paid $3,200 to watch her debt grow by more than $1,000. When she thinks about the credit card at all, which she tries not to, she thinks of it as something she is managing. She is not in denial. She is not avoiding it. She is paying it every month. She just does not know what managing actually looks like from the inside when the math is working against you at this rate. James paid off his balance 25 months in. His last payment went through on a Tuesday, and he did not even notice until the weekend when he was going through his accounts. He looked at the zero balance for a moment, felt something he could not quite name, and then set up an automatic transfer of $300 a month into an index fund. Same amount, same day of the month, different destination. He has been doing that for 11 months. His brokerage account has just crossed $4,000. By the time Maya's balance reaches $10,000, which it will at the current trajectory within the next 18 months, James will have $6,000 to $7,000 in invested assets that he built from the money that used to go to a credit card company. This is not poetic justice, it is arithmetic. Let's talk about what you actually do with this information, because understanding the trap is step 1 and getting out of it is step 2, and they require different things. The first thing to do is run your own number, not an approximation, the exact number. Get your most recent credit card statement, find the balance, find the interest rate, the APR, then find a credit card payoff calculator, there are free ones everywhere, and put in 2 numbers. First, what happens if you pay the minimum every month? Look at the total interest and the payoff date. Then put in what you can actually afford to pay per month and look at how dramatically those numbers change. Most people who do this exercise once never go back to minimum payments, not because they have more money, because they now understand what the minimum payment is actually costing them, and cost and price are different things. The minimum payment is a price. What it costs is 15 times that. The second thing to understand is the avalanche versus the situation you are actually in. If you have multiple cards, the instinct is often to spread payments across all of them, a little extra here, a little extra there. The math argues strongly against this. On multiple balances at different rates, the highest interest rate balance is the one destroying you the fastest. Every dollar of extra payment applied to the highest rate card saves you in long-run interest than the same dollar applied to any other card. This is the debt avalanche. Order your balances by interest rate, highest to lowest, pay the minimum on everything, send every extra dollar you have to the highest rate card. When that one is gone, the payment you were sending there goes to the next one. The payoff accelerates with each card that closes because the payment from the closed card gets stacked onto the next target. A 2016 study published in the Journal of Marketing Research confirmed that the avalanche method minimizes total interest paid in virtually every scenario with multiple debts at different rates. The math is unambiguous. On a typical multi-card situation with 10 to 15,000 in total debt across 3 cards at varying rates between 18 and 27%, the Avalanche saves somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000 in total interest compared to spreading payments evenly. $2,000 to $5,000 from a sequencing decision, not from earning more, from choosing which balance to hit first. The counter-argument worth acknowledging, honestly, is the debt snowball. Pay the smallest balance first, regardless of interest rate. The psychological research on this is real. Some people need the win of closing an account. They need to see a zero, feel the momentum, experience the proof that this is actually working before they can sustain the behavior long enough to finish. If you have tried the Avalanche and stalled, if you have started and stopped multiple times, the snowball might be what you need, not because it is mathematically optimal, but because the best strategy is the one you complete. A slightly suboptimal strategy you finish beats an optimal strategy you abandon in month 4 every single time. There is a third option that most people underestimate: a balance transfer. Many credit cards offer 0% introductory APR on balance transfers, typically for 12 to 21 months. If your credit is good enough to qualify, transferring your high-interest balance to a 0% card and paying aggressively during the promotional period is one of the highest return financial moves available. There's usually a transfer fee of 3 to 5% of the balance. On $8,000, that is $240 to $400. Compare that to the $15,600 in interest Maya is on track to pay. The transfer fee is not a cost, it is a discount on an enormous bill. The critical discipline is that you must pay the balance down aggressively during the 0% period, because when the promotional rate expires, the rate often jumps to 25 or 27%. A 0% card you do not pay off in time becomes a new high-interest trap. But for someone with the discipline to treat the promotional period as a deadline and the income to make real payments, the balance transfer is a legitimate and powerful. Let's bring this back to Maya and James one more time and run the full 10-year picture, because the number at year 5 is striking, and the number at year 10 is the one that changes how you think about this permanently. At year 10, James has been debt-free for 7 years and 4 months. For 7 years and 4 months, he has been redirecting that $300 a month into an index fund. $300 a month at 8% annual return over 88 months generates approximately $43,000. He put in $26,400 of his own money. The rest is compound growth on money that used to go to a bank. Maya at year 10 is still carrying a balance. At the minimum payment trajectory, her $8,000 balance will not be paid off until approximately year 31 from when she started. At year 10, she still owes somewhere around $8,500. She has paid approximately $8,100 in minimum payments over 10 years to go from $8,000 in debt to $8,500 in debt. She paid $8,100 and her balance went up. The math does not care that she paid every month. It does not reward consistency when the consistency is in the wrong direction. The total wealth gap between Maya and James at year 10 is approximately $51,000. James has $43,000 in investments. Maya has $8,500 in debt. The gap between those two positions is $51,500. It was created entirely by the difference between a $63 monthly payment and a $300 monthly payment on the same original balance at the same interest rate. The delta was $237 a month. $237 a month to shift $51,000 in outcome. That is not a small leverage point. That is one of the highest return decisions available to someone carrying credit card debt. And the only reason most people do not take it is that they never ran the number and compared the two lines. The minimum payment is not a reasonable thing to pay. It is the minimum the bank will accept before it charges you a late fee. It is a floor designed by people who profit from you staying in debt as long as possible, priced carefully to feel manageable, and structured specifically to keep you in the relationship forever. The disclosure box that federal law requires them to put on your statement is not designed to be read. The number in large, bold font at the top of the page is designed to be paid, and every month you pay it, the bank wins, and the math moves a little further against you. Maya is not careless. She is not financially illiterate. She is a person who looked at a statement, saw the amount due, and paid the amount due. That is a completely reasonable interpretation of what a statement is asking you to do. It just happens to be an interpretation that cost her 31 years and $15,600. James is not a finance genius. He just paid more than the minimum. He did not even think of it as a strategy. He just didn't like the balance and wanted it gone. The difference in their outcomes is not intelligence or discipline or financial sophistication. It is information. Maya did not know what the minimum payment was actually doing. Now you do. The statement will arrive next month. The amount due will be in large, bold font near the top. Below it, in the small gray box, there will be a number that tells you what you are actually agreeing to by paying only that. Read the second number, then decide what you are going to do.